Well, what we're going to do, we've been looking at things like character studies, and one of the characters and that we've been trying to uh, get a lot out of, that we thought that the Lord had, that we know that the Lord has waiting for us, out of the life of Ruth. And much has been made before about how wonderful Naomi was, how wonderful Ruth was, and Boaz. But we're going to be looking at something right now, real quick. And though it's relatively short, I'm hoping that we get a lot out of this because we're looking at some of the key statements that have been made to, about, and from Ruth. And I'm hoping that this will be encouraging to everyone here, especially in today's climate where dating and marriage has been so maligned, so maligned. Just a couple of real quick statistics for you. There was a time when the world was alarmed, at least speaking for the United States, was alarmed because it wasn't very long ago in which divorce was something that was rarely spoken about, rarely thought of, rarely practiced. But now that has changed. And one of the latest statistics is that divorce, and these things are roughly accurate because sometimes there's different surveys and different censuses that people are leaning on, but close enough to where you get the truth. And I recently heard that roughly divorces were now up to 55%. 55%. There are many things that are practiced now. One is that there are a lot of people who are telling men, don't get married. Don't get married. The courts are completely against you. And that no matter what happens, once you get married, most of your stuff is subject to her whims, and that you can lose so much very quickly. You lose your children, and you lose half your things that you may have worked your life for. And I know there are very many famous celebrities you know today who got married and after a very short time lost it all. Whether they and said, well, sign a prenup, but that's not always for some people either practiced or what have you. The point is, marriage has now past the 50% mark. And I remember it was up to 40%. People were panicking, or people were sending out, or warning people. It's immense now. Not only that, but all the statistics that would be good for us to be aware of is this: abortion. And I'm not quite sure. I want to make sure I have the numbers right. But abortions, which has now increased greatly. But here's what I wanted us to see. When people are married, let's just speak about for women. For the most part, only 13% of married women get an abortion. Abortion is really something that is practiced among the singles. And Planned Parenthood, I'm not going to make this into a political speech or anything like that. I'm just giving you the facts. But it was started really a century ago by those who had more motives other than just being a feminist. But you can research that on your own. We'll talk about it another time. The point is, just for the sake of time, just giving you the numbers. It's really about 13% of married women will have an abortion. When people are married, it's good for their own personal lives. When people are married, they think different and they build a family. Building families is the backbone, really, of a nation and morality. So, and forget about it. When it comes to the kingdom and the kingdom of God, divorces have crept into the church at a rate that is, of course, very disturbing. And now one of the biggest things that cause that, well, you can just say, no fault divorce. So I can get divorced for any reasons, irreconcilable differences, whatever that really means sometimes. It's huge. So anyway, that's one thing. So abortions, divorces, these are all things that God never intended for it to be. And it can be very scary for people to date now. Very scary for people to even court one another. The things that men have subjected women to once they've had the power of marriage has been horrible for many men. On the other hand, the things that women have subjected their husbands and their children to because of now being able to just split a family up. I've always said this, and just want us to be sure we're clear on this. No sex is more evil or better than the other. They both can become experts in their own way of destroying their families, destroying their mates, and destroying their children. And it is only the power of God that can turn a backwards practice a nation like that around. And it is God that you need to make sure that you are the kind of husband you need to be, that you are the kind of wife you need to be, and also children, that children are being raised to be the kind of productive human beings that they should be. And if anyone should be a shining light to that, it should be the kingdom. So after saying all that, I hope that some of these things will stand out. If you would, I'm just going to skip around. You don't have to write this down. You don't have to turn there, but make note of it. Some of the key sentences in the story of Ruth picking up. And I'm looking at chapter 3, for instance. In chapter 3, when Ruth approaches him, and I'm talking about, there was the verse when she said, "You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor." That is a very, very key thing for a man to say. You didn't, he was watching her and he said, "You were not somebody who ran after men." And now we live at a time where women are, especially young women, very often, the promiscuity is on another level, on another level. And he's saying that he watched Ruth. Ruth was not like that. You didn't go chase, because it wasn't just because, well, that's because Boaz, had money and so on. He says here, you didn't run after younger men, whether they were rich or whether they were poor. She was not a gold digger. And she wasn't somebody, oh, he's young, he's there. No, she was a woman of quality, seeking a man of quality. And when I say quality, I mean spiritual quality. This whole kinsman redeemer, so on. She could have found somebody else, perhaps, who didn't have any of those kind of hang-ups. But this was a man who was righteous. And he took note of that. And I'm going to say this to every church girl there is out there. You really want to gain the respect of men? I'm telling you, when you are a true disciple of Christ, not a church-going girl, but when someone who really respects God and respects herself, trust me, most men take notice. Now, they may attempt to corrupt it because there are men who are just hopelessly selfish, and they will get in the way of your relationship with God. So they try to corrupt you. But deep in their hearts, most of the time, they take notice and say, this is the kind of girl I would love to show off to my friends and everybody and to my family. Next thing that is said, he said, when all the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Saying the people of my town, they know that you are a woman of noble character. Let me tell you something. Reputation matters. And you don't have to turn there, as I said, but look up Proverbs chapter 22. Look at verse 1, when it is stated right there that a good name is worth more than rubies, depending on the version that you read. That's what it's telling. You will read that in Proverbs 22:1. A good name is worth more than rubies. Believe me, I have known people that has proven to be true over and over and over again. So Ruth has a good name. Everybody knows that she's a woman of great character. And that's someone that a man wants to marry. Not where everybody's talking about how wicked and suspect she is. And sometimes it's unfair when people do those things, and it may not be true. But for the most part, reputations, the Bible tells us that even a child is known by their practices. So there are some things that just really cement our reputations. Ruth didn't have to worry about that. And now Boaz doesn't have to either. This is the kind of woman that when I bring her home, everybody's going to know, nah, he got a quality lady there. Picking up as he goes on. There was another, I'm not as he goes on, but one of the other key statements was when he said, stay here until the morning. If he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, if he wants to do his duty, he's letting her know, you can stay here till the morning, but until that, if that fellow wants to do his duty, he does have first dibs. Let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, then I will do it. Lie here until morning. And what's the key there? He said, bottom line is, we touched on this, but just to remind you, Boaz steps back to let this man take his rightful place as her guardian redeemer, to marry her and to acquire the land, if that is what he wants. And I don't care how much you are interested in somebody else. If they're married, they're married. There's a particular place and a particular low place in hell for people who break up and bust up a family. And there are people that very often, I've heard Christian counselors even teach on this, it shows you the kind of a person who would come between a man and a woman, whether it be the man who's pursuing a woman or the woman who pursues a man. It shows something about their head, their character, and their intense selfishness. And God is saying, that's not someone you can build a life with. That is not someone you can build a life with. How many people have heard, oh, my boss is going to leave. My boss is going to leave his wife and marry me as the receptionist, as a secretary, only to have their heart broken 5, 6, 8 years down the line. So I hope that is making sense. Boaz steps back and it shows the kind of man that he is. And she doesn't argue with him. Goes along with it. So the next thing also, if you look down in verse 14, again, you don't have to turn there, but just maybe make reference a little easier for you. It says, so she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, no one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor. Protect her reputation. A good man protects the reputation of the woman that he is courting. When it gets to a certain hour, go home. I've known women who have kicked and screamed and been very angry to get that kind of advice. I know men who have broken that kind of advice. And later on, they're trying to tell somebody else what to do. What do you mean? I seen her sneaking out of your bedroom at X amount of hours. You don't fool me. That's the way the world thinks. Oh, please don't tell me about her. I know what you two have been up to. God's children are to be marked. What does it say in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 3? It says that there should not be even a hint of sexual immorality. Not even a hint. People shouldn't even think that something might be going on. I have known Christians that while they're dating, they're not married, they're not even engaged, but they keep the doors open so that nobody could ever accuse the girlfriend of anything. I've known there are times when one partner gets a little bit more interested in pushing the envelope, wants to go farther than the other partner is willing to go. And they're pushing and pushing, and they're not married yet. And one of them puts the brakes on, sometimes even getting embarrassed by it, by the partner, by the person they're dating. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Sometimes even being embarrassed or made to feel a little like ashamed because they are not willing to go beyond a certain point before marriage. And what he's saying here is this: nobody must see you leaving the threshing floor. He's going to protect his reputation and hers. And everybody who is dating, I'm telling you now, there is nothing that you can do very often to restore a busted reputation, at least in some circles. And that's why Jesus, the Redeemer, matters, because he can. Isaiah 1 tells us that afterwards you will be known as the city of righteousness. Afterwards, I will restore your leaders as in day of old. And some of us need to have our leadership, in other words, our own thinking and Jesus Christ in our own head restored. And Jesus does that. So even if you have blown it, God can fix it. But you'd better be contrite, broken, and repentant of it so that he can do the work, not just on you and your heart, but your reputation as well. He protects the reputation of this woman and his own reputation. Let's keep going on. Hope this is helping. Picking up in verse 15, he said, bring me the shawl you are wearing. I'll hold it out. When she did so, he poured 6 measures of barley and placed a bundle on her. Let me tell you this. When a man is a good man, he's going to provide. And he shows his signs of providing long before he is married. But now there's this marred, twisted view. Hey, I bought dinner. Hey, I took you out. Hey, I put out, so now you'd better put out. If a man believes you're a believer and you're a Christian and he thinks because he bought you a meal or took you to a restaurant that now you have to compromise your values, one, you got to make it clear beforehand that you're not a churchgoer. You are a Christian. You're not a churchgoer. You are a disciple of Jesus Christ. And there's no amount of food, there's no meal, there's nothing there that's going to cause you to compromise your values, even if everything inside of you is tempting you to do so. He may not understand. That's why the Bible tells you, do not be yoked with unbelievers, because an unbeliever is not going to understand. He's got one thing on his mind. Take your clothes off. I spent money, or I've done such and such. And God says no. That's someone who, quite frankly, is a danger to your eternal soul. And when you're burning in hell, he won't be there with a bucket of water to put it out for you. And what's he telling you here? But on the other hand, there are some people that are gold diggers. They only want to use men. They have these things now, dinner dates, and they have like a roster. They have a roster. Stick with me now. There are many women now who, bottom line is, different men serve different purposes. One is to provide for my needs. Two is to provide for my wants. Another one is to provide safety. Another one, he gives me a little bit of guidance. I like where his head is at. Another one is to provide excitement. He's fun. He's fun and he's funny. Another one provides, hey, he's my friend. And what happens is that very often they enter marriage with this whole roster going on still. So they get married, but they're easily bored, easily disappointed, because they found out that one man doesn't have all those things. And I have found that, honestly, for some women to be happy and to be happily married, they need to marry one person they need to marry somebody who embodies all those things. And the only thing that can keep them happy, the only thing that can keep them satisfied, is that they have to marry somebody in the profession. And here's one profession that works. He's got to marry somebody who's a rodeo clown. Marry a rodeo clown. Think about it. He dresses different than everybody else, kind of flashy in some ways. Number two, he's athletic. He's got bulls coming at him and horses coming at him. Number three, he's brave. He's protecting the rodeo riders who fall on the ground, who are being attacked by bulls that weigh 800, 1,000 pounds of beef that can kill them with one kick or give them permanent paralysis and brain damage. These clowns jump in the way. So what else are they? They're brave. They're exciting. So what do they got? What do they provide? They're making a living. So they're making money. They're brave. They are protecting other men. They're athletic, because you can't do that kind of stuff being out of shape. They're the whole thing. They're the whole kit and caboodle. And some people won't be happily married until they find a rodeo clown and marry. But for the most people, a woman has to have some kind of discipline and have her priorities straight. Is this a man that has been sent to me from God? And if he's too boring, then perhaps God is too boring for you also. You may even have been bored with Jesus Christ, or bored, take it a step lower, or very bored even with one of the apostles. So he gives her a lot. When somebody's not a gold digger, God pours more, because it's God who's providing. And he gives her 6 measures of barley, ties it on and says, bring this home. You don't think Naomi wasn't surprised by that? So I hope this is making sense so far. Not running after young men, whether they were rich or poor. So it was something more than money and youth. Number 2, she was a woman of noble character. She had a reputation, and other people know it. I'm sorry, every neighborhood, every college campus, every school, every team, everywhere you go, all over the internet, all over social media, there are women who have a reputation for being good or bad, good for a man or bad for a man. And those things follow them. And worse, that very often they don't take it seriously until they find out that their children have caught wind of it. So you want to have, but there are women, man, they are noble, that everybody, they may even mock them for being celibate, but they want to be them, or they want to marry them. The women want to be like them, and they wish they could go back in time and be just like them or redo their reputation. Number 2, they protect their reputation. Number 3, not a gold digger. I hope this is helping so far. 4 more things. 1, if you look down in verse 18, well, because we read this before, but I'm just keying in on a couple of statements for those of you who are married, dating, male or female. and also the kind of advice that you probably should be giving. It says in verse 18, the second half of that statement said, then Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens today. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. Boaz wants her. Boaz wants to be with her. Boaz has fallen in love with this woman, but he won't supersede what God has placed in order. He's not going to jump over. There are so many people who are so rash and so excited that they would just trample over God's laws to get what they want, only to pay for it later and wake up one morning saying, what in the world did I do? Who in the world did I bring home? Why did I bring this on myself? He said, this man's not going to rest. He is intent on following God's ways. That's deep. Ladies need to find a man who will not rest until it is concluded. Not only is she separated, not only is she not involved, not with her baby daddy, not with her some ex-boyfriend, some ex from her past, not with some we're in the middle of divorce. Well, we're still together, but we're really separated. Well, we're not divorced, blah, 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 blah. You want a woman who is single, single, single. You want a man that is single, single, single. And you want a man who can lead you that way. We'll cross this bridge, not just when we get there, but we'll cross it if God says cross it. He can stop. And he's not going to rest. But he's not just waiting for things to work out. He says he's not going to rest until the matter is settled. He's going to bring it to their attention. He's going to make sure he is moving ahead. And I've known guys like this, that they dated and they were interested in a woman, and whether or not church elders supported it or people supported whatever, he did all that he could without going too far to secure who he thought would be a good wife and mother of his children. In chapter 4, when you looked in verse 2, we're looking at a couple of things real quick here. When you look in verse 2, key statement, Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, sit here, and they did so. So he got input, he got advice, but he also got witnesses. When someone is doing what is right, they do it in front of everybody. When someone is sneaking around corners, when people are doing things in dark alleys, in corners, and let's not get so extreme. When people are involved and dating one another, but they are hiding key points, especially from godly people, it gives the devil room to work, or they are already up to something. That's why when people have these secret, whether it be phone calls, 11, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, not that you should have everybody in your business, but you're a fool, the Bible says. The Bible says you're a fool. And just for reference, go look in Proverbs chapter 12. Go look in verse 1. Go look in verse 15. Go look in Proverbs chapter 15 about how a fool thinks what he's doing is right. A fool thinks what they're doing, hey, there's nothing wrong with this. They think it's okay. Only to find out later on they were dead wrong because God knew more, but they didn't acquire. It says only a fool does not seek advice is what it's telling you there. And here, he brings witnesses also. You know, in John chapter 3, one of my favorite verses, you look in verse 19, says, he who does what is right steps into the light. When people are crossing the line and doing things that are wrong, where do they spend their time? In the dark. And if you got two of them who come together and say, hey, let's do this, you know what? We're going to secretly go about how we're going to build our own life. We're going to secretly date. Those are the same people that when they come together, even after marriage, they are secretive. And, you know, where are they? Why aren't they available to serve? How come they know? Why aren't they available even to contribute to God's work? They keep everything, their finances, their life, their struggles, their victories. Everything's a secret. Those are people that as a couple, instead of it doubling, because two should get the Bible tells us two should reap a reward, and the kingdom should benefit from your marriage. But if the kingdom is suffering more and dragging you along, you're selfish, you're self-centered. When you get together very often, the one who is more selfish drags the other one down. And now there's nobody who's benefiting. Over here, this is the reason why when people get married, they have a cloud of witnesses. Because someone's able to say, you said you were going to honor, You said that you were going to be submissive. You said that you were going to honor his life. That's what you said in front of witnesses. You said you were going to protect her. You said you were going to provide for her. You said it was going to be whether in sickness or health. You said those things, and we all heard you. That's why people who get married and they say, oh, we're going to get married. We're just going to get a justice of peace. We're going to go inside the janitor's closet and say our vows secretly. Why? Why? Later on, can anybody say, hey, you promised this? And let me tell you something. Some of the best things that can happen in your marriage is when you may not like it. One of the best things that can happen in your marriage is when someone can step up to you and said, you promised that woman this. You promised that man that. That's what you promised. So here, I hope this is helping. So he's doing this in front of witnesses. Picking up in verse 5. Then Boaz said, on the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. Legacy, identity, it matters. You know, in the movie Troy, Achilles, maybe it's been some years since some of you have seen it, but Brad Pitt plays Achilles. And there's a running theme throughout the movie. Why are you fighting this war? Why are you doing that? Why are you fighting for Greece, even though, or why are you fighting for Troy? Why are you for the Trojans? I'm not for them, but you get what I'm saying. As the two are going to war against each other, why are you involved? And he said, what's the one promise they could all give him? Your name will live. Your name will live. People will be talking about you for years to come. And don't we now? Well, they made a movie about him, Achilles. My point is this. That's the desire for every man. I left my mark. My name lives. And very often what happens here, people forget that. So they just, whether it be hit it and quit it, they come together and then they separate. Listen, when a man marries somebody, especially if they have a child or children, it is important the legacy he leaves on those children. It is important that his ideals, that his godly standards, that the children take it up and say, I learned so much from this man. You know, some of you know briefly, many of you may know the name Greg Laurie. I don't know if you know his story, but Greg Laurie, what was one of the biggest challenges of his life? That growing up, his mother was all over the place. She married 7 times. He did not know who his father was. He did not know the name of his father, but there was one man that she married, and that man was in the Navy, and he made such an impact on Greg Laurie, and the man's name was Oscar Laurie. So no matter what names the mother was running around with, and no matter what her maiden name was, it didn't matter what her maiden name was. For some men, for some kids, who cares? Their identity still is not grounded yet. And he takes on the name of Oscar Laurie. Greg Laurie, who is now known throughout Christian circles throughout the world. And his last name is Laurie. But he took it from a man who made a major impact on him, Oscar Laurie. I say this to you. I don't know what your situation is today, but brothers and sisters, make sure that you are leaving an imprint, whether it's an adopted child or a family that has been meshed. Make an imprint for God, and it comes from more than just rebuking them. It comes from loving them and letting them be proud to carry your name forward. And this whole thing now about DNA, they're now passing laws for DNA testing, because they found out more and more and more people are not sure if my kid is really mine. And that's a story for another time, a subject to go into. But I tell you this, and I'm not going to name where, there is one place where the government official said that we cannot pass that law, because if we pass the law about DNA testing being mandatory, we are concerned for the amount of femicide that will take place in our land. This is current. The amount of femicide. Femicide means the murder of women. There will be so many men who find out that it was never really my child. and the rage and the anger would be intense. Date right, marry right, walk right, not in the moment for how you feel. Hope that's helpful. Picking up. And the last point here, major point that I wanted to bring out, actually almost in, is in verse 6. I'm sorry. When he talked about, at this point, the guardian redeemer said, I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it. We touched on this last time just to make sure. Bottom that we all get the practical purposes of this. Can I marry someone with her kind of reputation? Molech, she used to worship. Chemosh, or Chemosh, she used to worship, however you want to pronounce it. Child sacrifices. I'll risk my whole future if I let this woman come into my home. But Boaz, he did. He did. Why? Not because he was in lust with her, not because she tried to seduce him and deceive him. He has watched her for a while, and he has seen her reputation that she has gained among others. He has seen that she is hardworking. He has seen that she's not a gold digger. He has seen this is a real woman. This is a real woman. And this is the kind of woman I want. Ruth has now won him over by just how she carried herself. And whatever beauty he saw in her was far more than just skin deep. He went to all these lengths. But the other guy is like, I ain't taking no body from Molech. He may not have even seen her, but he cannot take that risk. And very often when men are dating, even now, sometimes they are not looking at the reputation of the person they're dating. Or some women may feel, I'm far beyond anybody ever marrying me. If you have something and your reputation wasn't great and a man knows about it or knows a great deal about it and says, I'm slipping a ring on your finger anyway, treat him as God would have you treat him, with utmost respect. Too often people aren't sober as to what it took to say, will you marry me? And also, men, if you're going to marry a woman and you're looking at her, look at who she is, not at what you heard before. The past matters because the past can often repeat itself. Repeat itself. There are many people that they seem to have repented of everything. Put them in the wrong place with the wrong people, around drugs, alcohol, or whatever, and you can see men go back to their past, women go back to their past. So yes, the past does matter. But for Boaz, I know whatever was went on in the past, I know who she is now. And the way I seen her stick and be so loyal to Naomi, you know she's on another level. So finally, in the final two lines in verse 20, in verse 11, when it said, may the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and like Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. Built up the family of Israel. A woman will build a legacy like no other. Like no other. He doesn't mention Jacob here. He doesn't, even, of course, obviously Jacob was a part of it. But those two women were righteous, man. Even when they did things that were wrong, they repented and moved forward. God used their lives. And God will use the life of your partner, male or female. God will use the life. But for Ruth, man, who knew that she was going to have the line and the lineage? The lineage, think about it, of King David, and then centuries later, Jesus Christ. Only God knew. Your end, your beginning is not the end of your story. God knows the end. The last chapter hasn't been written yet. And don't think it's automatically written, and don't try to write it yourself. Be obedient and submissive to the Lord God. Watch what he does. And finally, at the end of that, when it said, for your daughter-in-law who loves you and is better than you, and is better to you than 7 sons has given him birth. A great daughter is worth more than 7 okay sons. I've seen this. I've been around this. I've witnessed this, and it's absolutely true. So every young woman, stop that nonsense about the Bible is misogynistic or the patriarchy, blah, 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 blah. Garbage. You be the best woman God created you to be, and watch what he does with your life and your children's lives. There are so many aggressive women now who are actually destroying their sons and daughters and their own marriage and their husbands. And there are some who, quite frankly, may not be married to a guy that's all that much of a prize, but they are married to Jesus. And through their prayers and through their lives are a blessing to their parents and a blessing to all those around them. I hope this has been helpful today. Thank you so much for joining us for The Word is Love, sponsored by the Bronx Christian Church. May God bless you, and may you, wherever station you are in life, if you are single, may your singleness be blessed by the Lord, where you don't try to write your own story and end up making a bad decision. If you're married, don't make decisions based on your feelings and your emotions that will end up ruining the story. And if you're a child, make sure that you carry on. Any good thing you learn from your father, any good thing you learn from your mother or your grandparents, carry it on, carry it through, and let God finish writing his story through your godly life. Thank you again. May God bless you. Till next time. Amen.